Welcome to Phillip Island, Victoria in Australia. What a setting we have for this great sporting contest, the Little Penguin Sea to Dune race. Nervous moments always as they gather on the beach, the tension mounting, and away they go. There's the defending champion, wearing his familiar navy blue and white, great waddling style. Another pre-race favourite though, losing touch with the pack. Maybe that's why. A few too many fish in the day's feeding. There's a familiar face, Skip McIntyre, 8 times a champion back in the 90s, a very successful coach now, keeping a keen eye on proceedings. This the leading group, 1 or 2 still able to put on a show for the camera, others just ploughing straight over it. Some resorting to shortcuts. Sad that cheating has crept into this beautiful sport. The judges will have a look at that. But up at the front, the pace is relentless, closing in on those sand dunes that will offer a bed for the night. The fatigue starting to tell. Who's got the finishing kick up on the outside? What a turn of pace from that one, whichever one it is. No answer from the rest, and he takes victory. What a win. There we are, into the Burrow, building an extension with his winnings, and back tomorrow to try and defend his title here on Phillip Island.
Welcome back everybody to Penguin Live TV. I am Ranger Viv and we have got Roland with us tonight. Do you want to come on in and say a few things?
Hi everybody, thanks for that Viv. Welcome to everyone viewing this evening, to our regular water watchers and hopefully to some first timers as well. I'll be looking at your comments on Facebook and YouTube and hopefully throwing Viv a few curly questions. So enjoy the night and we'll talk to you soon.
Alright, thanks so much for that. So the Penguins have decided to come in early again, so that's really nice, for us at least. So I don't know if you guys want to try to count this first group of Penguins. It's a really hard group because there's just so many in there. As well as if you want to leave your guesses for last night's Penguins as well, and maybe Roland will be nice enough to tell you that answer a little bit later on. Oh, they're front back! Alright, so Wominjeka everyone, and that means welcome in the language of the Bunurong people. And the Bunurong people are the traditional landowners of Phillip Island that we are streaming from tonight. They had lived here for thousands and thousands of years before European settlement, and they took absolutely beautiful care of the land. Without the care that they had taken in their day-to-day lives, we wouldn't be able to have the Penguin Parade here. So I would just like to pay my respects to the elders, past, present and emerging. I would also like to thank everyone who is viewing tonight. Thank you guys so much for watching with us. We are so happy to be able to have these live streams running again. We love being able to share our beautiful penguins. Now, when I say we, I mean Phillip Island Nature Parks, and we are a non-for-profit organisation and we are visitor funded. So that means everything that we're able to do to protect these beautiful little penguins comes directly from people visiting us, buying souvenirs and food and beverages, or making donations. So you can, if you fall in love with these guys and want to help us out, you can make a donation through the link in the description. You can even adopt a penguin, adopt a seal or koala through the Penguin Foundation website as well. Now these penguins, as you can see, they are tiny penguins. There's a very, very good reason we call them the little penguin. And being so small, they are very easy to be taken by predators. And those main predators are birds of prey. So they're really worried about eagles and hawks, as well as kelp gulls and Pacific gulls, which are, oops, people's heads. Let's go back to the beach and see if we've got another group coming in. Oh, yes, we do. All right, here we go. Really worried about kelp and Pacific gulls, which are basically giant glorified seagulls, but they would love to take a penguin given the opportunity. So the penguins have waited for it to get dark because that is when those birds of prey go to bed. And the reason they're early tonight is because we've got lots of big dark clouds coming overhead, so it has made it a bit darker earlier. So today they've started about 10 minutes earlier than they did last night, just because of those clouds, as well as the high tide. So if we go back to the beach, you can see, oh, what are you doing, silly penguin? You can see they've only got a very tiny little bit of beach to cross, just a couple of meters at best, which is very good for the penguins. They love it. Let's hop over to the highway really quickly. So when it's a high tide, it means they've got this very little bit of space to cross, which is very good for these penguins. Because at low tide, they might have to cross, 50 to 100 meters of beach, which is terrifying. Being a blue penguin, which you can kind of just see in this light here, they are very well hidden in the water. And on land, they've got lots of wonderful places to hide in amongst the vegetation. So that means crossing the beach, they are just so exposed. You can see how easy it is to see these two little guys right here, and they've just run back. And that is why they're so scared, and that is why they cross the beach in these groups, and they are making life very hard for poor Elizabeth counting tonight because they have just run back from these rocks. So every night we count the penguins for around 50 minutes, starting from when the first group of 5 crosses the beach, when they get about halfway across. So when they pass the halfway mark, Elizabeth will have counted them. So if they go back to the water, that just makes it very, very confusing for us, unfortunately. But Elizabeth is a pro. She's been doing this a long time, so I'm sure she has it completely under control. Now, did you want to give us last night's numbers?
Well, can I give you just a clue so far, Viv?
Cheeky. All right. What's the clue?
It's got 4 digits.
Yep.
Starts with a 1.
Oh, okay.
I tell you, Marie was very close
Marie.
when she guessed 1020. She's got all the right digits, but they're in the wrong order.
Oh, that's really cheeky. All right. Does anyone think they can guess the exact one? I think we're being a bit mean tonight and not going to give it to you too easily.
No, we're not. All right, I will.
Okay.
I'm a softie at heart. We had 1,002 penguins last night. Viv and everybody else at 6:14 they arrived.
Oh, that's
A
brilliant.
little bit earlier tonight, of course.
Yes, definitely earlier tonight. The tide was definitely a bit lower, so they were waiting a little bit longer for it to get dark enough and for them to feel secure enough to cross. So you can see these guys, they're huddled nice and tightly together because they are a bit spooked, and they're looking both ways before they cross the beach to make sure there's no birds of prey around or nothing that might potentially try to eat them. And so where they are now, they're in the wet sand, which means if something does catch them by surprise, they can run straight back into the safety of the water where it's very hard for anyone to see them. But they also swim faster. Oh, that's a big group. All right, this is better. This is what we want. So penguins can swim faster than any Olympic swimmer. They can swim up to 12 kilometers an hour when they're really pushing it. So it's going to be really hard for any of those birds of prey to try and get a penguin in the water, and that's why they are so consistently waiting in the water before they cross. And so this right here, big bird of prey is not going to want to try to grab a penguin out of this big group here. There's no real chance for them. And then once they get up to these rocks here, it's like they've walked through their front door, kind of. So they've reached the safety. They're nice and well camouflaged on these rocks again, with plenty of places for them to hide. So every ranger calls this something different. I call them the resting rocks, but some will call them the preening rocks or the hedges. Oh, something spooked them. Let's see. Is that naughty goose back? Is that? I have no idea what that was. Oh, well, okay. Goose is back. I wonder if it was the goose. I wonder if he did anything. So this goose is here every night, and he's got lovingly a few names. I think Bruce the Goose and Goosey McGooseface are a couple ones that you've given to him. And although Bruce the Goose is the one I'm going to go with, is a vegetarian, he eats mostly grass and plants and berries. He's still a goose. He's still a giant, giant bird. And I don't know about you, but I've got a healthy fear of geese. If they went and tried to come at me, I would run as well. So I do not blame these little penguins. And the geese are breeding now. As it's winter, they breed through the winter months. So they're a little bit extra territorial and cranky, which means they're more likely to charge at a penguin and tell them to go away, this is my space. So I think the penguins had a very good reason to go through and run away from that goose tonight. Do we have any questions yet, Roland?
Oh, sure, we've got a few questions.
Love it.
Absolutely. Actually, I've got a question for you myself.
Ooh,
It's my
okay.
very own question,
Ooh.
Viv. Little birdie told me that one of our nearest and dearest was actually on TV this morning.
Ooh. Now, I have a question back. Was the little birdie a penguin?
It could have been a penguin. Absolutely. They're the only kind of birdies I talk to. Well, apart from Bruce the Goose occasionally. But
Occasionally.
yeah.
Oh, you're friends with Brucey. Oh, he's gone. They've gone again. Yes. So we had Ranger Jordan was on ABC this morning telling everyone a little bit about the live stream and what we're doing here. So you can, if you want to have a look at Jordan doing her thing, you can go on iView and have a look at that little interview there as well. So if anyone's watched that interview and come here and watching it for the first time tonight, hello, welcome. I am sorry if you're in lockdown. It is not fun for anyone, but we hope that our penguins bring you a little bit of joy tonight. They certainly bring me a lot of joy every night. You can never get sick of these penguins. Oh, poor Elizabeth. They just keep going in and out of the water. I don't know if we can even ask them to try to guess what this second big group is, because they keep going back and forth.
well,
They're
they do,
probably
that's right.
getting more friends.
I think even our Rangers are struggling with this one.
Oh dear. But look at them here now. Let's go back and have a look at them in the waves as they try to decide what to do. So we've got a pretty good view of these penguins. We've got a nice camera and I've got a little joystick that helps me get a good look at them. I get to see their white bellies really easily. But poor Elizabeth, she is a lot further away. She's got a pair of binoculars, but they're nowhere near as good as our camera here. And she is counting them 1 by 1 or 10 by 10, depending on how tricky the group is. But you can see that they're going to run again. Yes, no, yes, maybe. They're not single file. Like these penguins crossing the beach right now, there's easily 10 across, and Elizabeth has to try to figure out how many are in that group from far away and not from the angle that we're at. So it is really, really hard counting these penguins, but we've been counting them the hard way since 1968. A lot of people ask, why don't we do it electronically or use some better technology? We could, and we do in some places. We've got these really cool weigh bridges that automatically look at their weight and count the penguins as they cross certain areas. But we've been doing it the hard way, like I said, since 1968. And if we want to keep comparing today's data with that old data, we need to be consistent, which means continuing to count them by hand, continuing to do it the hard way as much as it hurts. So we're not doing it to be difficult. We have got our very good reasons. Now, hopefully these guys will start heading over to the highway so we can get a nice close-up look while we wait. Do we have any more questions?
We sure do. So, question, does the wind bother the penguins?
Oh, that is a very good question. The wind. So I've never seen any change in penguin behaviour because of the wind. The only time I've seen the penguins change their behaviour for weather purposes was when it was so foggy they couldn't see their landmarks. So the penguins are using these landmarks, whether it's lights or us or rocks, to figure out where they want to cross the beach and then how to find their home from there, because they do go to the same spot every single time. And so because of that, when they couldn't see their landmarks, they just, highway now, yes. They couldn't see their way home. So a lot of them just chose not to come home until the next day. So, but I have also witnessed one other thing, which is when there was a big thunderstorm, that when the thunder gets quite close, they did jump and hide a little bit, which was really interesting. But rain and wind, anything like that, they don't care. They're fine. They spend all day in the rain and wind anyway, so not too much of a problem for them as long as it doesn't cause anything to fly past, like any birds or, I guess, branches to spook them that might look like a predator. Alright, look at all of these penguins. Do you think you can count them here, or are they a bit too quick? I think they're probably a bit too quick. They are for me and my professional penguin counter eyes. Look at this one, he's just standing here. What is he doing? Now, I know what he's doing. So when the penguins get home, they're not going to bed. They're going to have a bit of a penguin party all night long, because they're going to be stuck in their burrows all day hiding from predators again. So when they get home, they tend to stand near their home, but not inside. It's like they sit on their porch and have a bit of a cup of tea and watch all the other penguins walk by. So I think, oh, that was rude. He just walked into him. I think this penguin probably lives. Did you see that one tripping all over himself? I think that this penguin here probably lives just up the hill here. Oh, and as I say that, he's like, yeah, I might go up the hill. Now, this is a good penguin. I really like this penguin because I said he's going to do something and he did it for once. Usually I say, yeah, they're going to do this and they don't. So thank you very much, penguin, for being nice to me today. All right. Have any more questions?
Oh, I sure do. I would also just say a few of you would have been seeing that we've got spamming non-friend back again this evening. We are trying our best to get on top of that. So, but I would ask you, please do not engage, do not click on any links, do not even reply or put a comment on their links. Just ignore them, and we're working really, really hard at this end to get rid of them. There's a bit of work at the back end going on at the moment. But I have got a question about if one of the parents dies when they have chicks, does the other parent take over? What happens then, Viv, if we lose one of the mums or dads?
That's a really great question. So you may have heard that some other penguins, the dad does all the work. Not these guys. These guys are very good at their co-parenting duties. So one will stay with the eggs or with the chicks and the other one will go get food and they'll take turns. So when the chicks are really little, they'll take turns every day or every other day. And as they get bigger, they'll take turns a little bit more often. What are you climbing over there, silly? They'll take turns a bit more often until the penguins can be left home alone. And so if a parent dies, it really depends on the age of the chicks. So when the chicks are really, really little, they are really relying on both of their parents to bring food home. So it is going to be a lot harder for them to be able to survive. But if the chicks are older, where they can go a few days without food without any issues, then they're probably going to be fine. They can manage with only those little bits of food. As they're taking turns, one parent can't exactly take over because they're already doing half the work, but they will come home as often as they can to feed those chicks, but they will put themselves first. As much as they are brilliant parents, they're also very selfish parents, and they do want to make sure that they have plenty of food for themselves as well. So not always the happiest story, but these are wild animals after all, and they do what they have to do to keep themselves happy and healthy. That camera does not want to clear up on these penguin bottoms.
And we want clear penguin bottoms, don't we?
Oh, definitely.
It's one of my very favourite angles.
Yeah, who doesn't love a penguin bottom? They've got their ridiculously fast poos, they've got their oil gland, they've got these cute little tails. I mean, it's great.
Now, given that we are trying to see into the dark there a little bit, Viv, I've got a question here about the penguin's eyesight in the dark. What is it like?
What is the penguin eyesight like in the dark? So that is a very good question. You'd think it wouldn't be too good because they're spending a lot of their time in the water, swimming around, but they actually have truly excellent eyesight because they do need to... Are there any penguins here? No. Because they need to be able to see their way across the beach, to see their landmarks and be able to see if there's any dangers or predators around. So I would say that they have better eyesight than most of us. But what's really interesting about their eyesight is they don't see light the same way as we do. So not to get too technical, but a lot of animals that spend a lot of time in the water don't see red light very well. And that's because red light doesn't go very deep into the water, so they've just evolved not to have it. Which means that all of our lights, we've done the opposite. We've put a red filter on them to make them more red because that's going to make it harder for the penguins to see. So these lights that we have on these penguins that allow us to see them really, really well do not have too much of an impact on them at all, which is really what we want. It means we can watch them doing what they do naturally without disturbing them. And that's also part of the reason we're really big on not having photography at the parade, because if a flash was to accidentally go off, it's a big bright blue light, and that will they will see that really, really well, and that could possibly damage their eyes, possibly make it harder for them to find their way homes to be able to feed their chicks if they've got chicks. So that is a very good question.
Got another one here for you, Viv.
Yep.
From Ruby, aged 6. We
Hi,
love
Ruby.
the questions from the kids, so keep them coming in.
Yes.
If a penguin steps on something sharp, does it hurt them or have they got tough little feet?
Oh, good question, Ruby. So they definitely have tough little feet. You can see, let's go back over to these rocks here. These penguins, they love the rocks because it gives them that bit of extra camouflage. But rocks, they're not all smooth and lovely. You can see they're a bit pointy, a bit sharp, and the penguins cross these every time they come home. So they've got tough little feet. These feet are not made for swimming, they're made for digging. So they use their feet to kick all the sand and stuff out of their burrows. They're really strong and they've got these big claws on them. But if something was to happen and they did hurt their feet, not that I've ever seen that, and I don't know if any of the rangers, oh, where are you going, have ever seen a penguin hurt their feet. Oh, hello. Penguin hurt their foot on the rocks. But if we were to see an injured penguin, we have a ranger on every night who's been trained in wildlife first aid, who will check them over and then can make an assessment and decide if they need to go to our hospital. We've got a wildlife clinic on site, a 24-hour one, that we can look after any injured animals. Yeah, so they're pretty good and not hurting themselves, which I think is really fantastic considering they are so clumsy and ridiculous. They look like they should hurt themselves more often. I think because they're so round and full of fish and a little bit chunky, they just bounce, so they don't tend to hurt themselves very often. Although that is to say they don't hurt themselves naturally too often, unless they're being predated on, but shush, we won't talk about that. But they can hurt themselves very easily when it comes to our plastic rubbish. So if they're going and looking for fish and see something in the water, maybe a plastic bag, a floating plastic bag, I don't know, do you have any ideas what it might look like floating around like this? Might look like a jellyfish perhaps, and penguins will eat jellyfish, and so will a lot of other animals. So a plastic bag looking like a jellyfish is not good for our penguins because it means they might accidentally eat it. And although it may not, somehow if it doesn't immediately hurt them through that or they don't get tangled in it, it might just make them feel full so they don't eat enough food, which means they then will not be able to get enough food and nutrients for themselves and might go hungry and starve. So it is really important that we're really careful with our rubbish. I know most of us do the right thing and put our rubbish in the bin, but when it comes to stuff with loops, like masks or the rings around your drink bottles, cutting those are really handy because they could blow out of your bin, they could get taken out by cheeky magpies, ravens or cockatoos. They like to go through bins. And just about all rubbish, I can't believe I missed that.
Bruce, what are you doing?
But most rubbish will end up in the waterway one way or another. Oh, look at the highway camera, look at them run. So distracted with my important message about plastic. Back to the penguin bums. Look at them go. They're still not too impressed by the goose. All right, I'm going to go back to the goose because I really want to see that again. But just quickly finish my plastic messaging and then I'll go back to the cute penguins being silly with the goose, is just to make sure that you do cut that plastic before it goes into the bin so it isn't going to get blown away and end up in our water. All right.
Now, Viv, I thought I was having trouble keeping up with the spammer comments, but what I'm having trouble keeping up with now is all the awesome questions that are coming in.
Yes.
We have got so many questions from the young'uns coming in. So, Emily would like to know, what type of fish do penguins eat?
Great question, Emily. So I've already said that they'll eat jellyfish. I don't think they get much nutrients from jellyfish though. But their favourite fish are things like anchovies and pilchards, those really oily, for me, disgusting fish, as well as little jellyfish, squid, basically anything at about 10 centimetres long that they can just quickly gulp down. Because what they're doing is they're diving up and down all day, up to 1,500 times a day, and swallowing those little fish all day. So anything small enough. Thanks,
Excellent.
Emily.
Thanks, Viv. Simon's son has a great little Penguins 101 question.
Ooh.
How do penguins swim?
How do penguins swim? Oh, I should have said that earlier when I was talking about how they don't swim. So they don't use their feet. Their feet are just for decoration. No, that's silly. I can't help it, guys. They actually use their flippers or their wings. People always say, do we call them wings or flippers? I think both are correct. They are technically a wing because they're a bird, but they don't use it to fly. And so these flippers and wings are very powerful. Oh, let's zoom out in case the goose goes at them again. Much more powerful than you'd expect. And they use them to swim. So they're just flapping. This is the worst penguin impression. They're just flapping their fins, flapping their flippers really, really quickly to fly through the water. There are some beautiful videos that you can find on YouTube and on the internet of penguins swimming because they're just gorgeous. Where's my goose gone? Oh, there he is. All right.
There's Brucey, never too far away.
No, so this is his territory. Oh, look at that! Look at him go! Told you, he's cranky because he's breeding.
He's getting a bit panickety, that
He
one.
is. He's being really naughty. Now, I promise, I know he looks scary, but he is completely harmless. Well, okay. It's close to harmless to the penguins. I've never seen a penguin hurt by one of our geese. I've seen the goose try and take a few little pecks at them, but I've never seen an actual injury. So I think the most Big Bruce here is going to do is really spook them and tell them to move out of his way. Which is really wrong because these penguins have been coming up this pathway for thousands and thousands of years. This individual goose here has not lived here that long, so it's the penguin's space, not his, and he needs to get over himself, I think. All right. Have any more questions?
Oh, yeah. Megan, who is 7, I wonder if that's Ranger Megan just pretending to be 7.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I think it might be.
Megan, who is 7, wants to know what's the average speed of a swimming penguin?
The average speed, great question, Megan. So when they're swimming their fastest, they're faster than the Olympic swimmers. But when they're going, they're cruising and swimming for fish, they're going at around 2 to 4 kilometers an hour. So definitely not faster than the Olympic swimmers there. But still pretty quick. I know I probably couldn't swim that fast, but
Absolutely
I'm pretty hopeless.
While we're talking swimming, Mia would like to know how long can a penguin swim until it has to breathe? How long can
Very
penguins
good.
hold its breath?
Yeah, so penguins are birds. Goose has moved again. Look at him go. They have got lungs, so they do need to come up for water. And through our recordings, we found that the longest breath holding was just under 2 minutes. So they're coming up fairly regularly to grab a gulp of air before they go and grab some more fish. Oh, these penguins must be so happy that Bruce has moved out of their way and they can finally go home. Poor things.
Now, we also have a question here from Oberon, the typing wonder dog.
Oh dear.
I know.
Are you sure?
Yeah. Oberon would like to know if penguins can lay unfertilized eggs like chickens and ducks sometimes do.
Oh, very good question. And it's not too much of a cheeky question, although I think it might be cheeky because you might know I don't fully know the answer. I don't know. If they do, I'm going to go with it's not common at all. So they probably don't, but there's definitely a possibility they might do it sometimes, but they're not doing it regularly the same way ducks and chooks do. No. Hope that helps, Obi. And if you keep asking the hard questions,
Yeah.
we'll not be happy.
We're going to ban Obi.
We'll
Forget
get
the
banned.
spammers, we're going to ban Obi.
We've done it before. We have done it before.
All right, William would like to know how many eggs do our little penguins lay?
Oh, see, that's a much nicer question, William. Thank you. So the penguins will lay 2 eggs at a time, almost always 2 at once. So if we find a burrow that has got 1 egg or 3 eggs, we're going to think that something weird's happened. Like maybe they haven't laid their second egg yet because they don't actually lay the 2 eggs at once. They lay 1 egg and then it'll be a few days until they lay their second egg. So we're going to think that we're in between that point of time. Or if there's 3 eggs, we're going to think that some reason another penguin's come in there and accidentally laid some eggs in that burrow by mistake. But it's very, very rare that we see anything besides 2 eggs. Thanks, William. Let's get back to the highway. These guys are looking a little bit shy. Maybe they're having a good look at themselves in the reflection of the window here. Oh, look at him go. So people don't like to... We don't like to say too much that penguins have personalities because we don't... I'm going to do it again. I'm going to try to say the word anthropomorphize. We don't like to anthropomorphize them too much. But they've got a big spectrum of behaviours from being quite bold and really sure of what they're doing to being quite timid and shy. So I would say that on that spectrum, these are the more shy penguins. You can see they're keeping their bodies quite low to the ground because they're a little bit unsure. They're stopping and having a look around very regularly. So they look like they're a bit shy. Maybe they've just been tortured by Bruce the goose a bit too many times and they're a bit nervous still. All right, what have we got going on? Let's go back to the beach, I think. All right. Rolly, any more questions?
Oh, yeah.
Loving, you've had some really good questions.
I know, and they keep on coming.
You're the best producer.
Sophia would like to know... Oh, don't tell Jordan. Sophia would like to know, what happens if a penguin gets lost out at sea? Or do they get lost at sea? And if so, how do they find their way home?
Yeah, so when penguins go to the ocean for the first time, between about 8 to 12 weeks is when our chicks are fully grown and they go out to the ocean and become a penguin. They spend that first year of life having a bit of a gap year, learning where the best places are to fish, learning how to fish and how to get home. And those penguins are the ones that are more likely than any others to get lost because of that. So sometimes they wash up in other beaches around Melbourne. They can show up there. So very often after the breeding season, we'll get some penguins wash up, which we try to get returned so we can look at rehabilitating and releasing them where possible. But for the most part, all the adult penguins, so, the over 1-year-olds that have figured out how to be a very good, efficient penguin, they don't get lost. They know exactly where they're going. They have got this ridiculously amazing memory that they know exactly where home is. They know, highway again, quick. They know where to go home. They know how long it takes them to get home, and they know where they need to cross the beach. And not only cross the beach, but they know how to get to their exact same box every time. Oh, you're quicker than me, penguins. So penguins have got a really, really clever little road system. I think it's really clever. So this is really slow. I should have done it the cheat way, but that's all right. We'll just patiently wait for the camera to keep up with me chatting. And they've all left. Sorry, guys. Here we go. So this here that the penguins are on right now is our Penguin Highway. We call it that because that's where the bulk of our penguins walk through to make their way home each night. And the penguins did make the highway themselves. We do maintain it. We cut back some of the vegetation because it's our emergency beach access as well. But it is it is their highway. And it's like they've gotten on a little bus. And so once they reach their stop, they'll take the next exit and go up a different direction as they head their way home. And from there, they find their way home from their excellent memories and their little roads to help direct them. So they're very clever little things.
Now, Viv, the time has come, the walrus said, to think of many things. What that means is we've got about 5 minutes left of the count, Viv.
And Roland's a little bit more strict
I'm
than
a
me
hardliner.
and Jordan.
Not like that, George. Oh, no.
Guys got to get in quick.
Squeeze in a couple of quick questions here, Viv. Elle would like to know how long do penguin eggs take to hatch, and I'm sorry if you have already answered it this evening, earlier in the stream.
I have not. So once the eggs have been laid, it'll take them about 35 days to hatch. So through that period, there's always one parent with them taking turns to keep those eggs incubated and to protect them from any cheeky ravens or rats that might like to have a bit of an egg breakfast. Thank you for that one.
And James and Noah would like to know, why don't penguins' knees bend?
Oh, that's one of my favourites. So if you ever want to walk like a penguin, just try to walk without bending your knees and lean forward a bit. You're always going to look like a funny penguin. So penguins' knees don't bend. Oops. Sorry, I wanted to stay there. Penguins' knees don't bend because they have adapted so well at swimming. So to be really good at swimming, they're keeping their legs nice and straight, so they're nice and streamlined to be really quick through the water. And so because they spend 80% of their time in the water, they have completely adapted for that, which is why they are clumsy and ridiculous on land. So you may have heard that penguins don't have knees. That's actually a myth. They do have knees. They're just fused, so they don't really bend. Their knees are also up in their bodies, so their knees aren't where you'd think when you look at them. They're actually quite far up in their bellies, and they've got a very funky little low center of gravity, which is why they have to lean forward when they walk. If they walked standing up straight like we do, they're going to fall straight on their bottoms, and then they'd have to do the little turtle thing where they have to struggle to get back up.
So I always like to think of it that where a penguin's belly button would be if it had one, that's about where the knees fuse.
That's right. Yep, so it's really quite up in there. All right.
Time for another quick question or two.
Please.
Okay. Young Olive, 6, would like to know, do they stay together as a family?
Okay, Olive, that's a really good question. So when the babies are really little, so up until that 8 to 12 weeks of age before the chicks leave, they are one big happy family. But at around that time when the chicks do leave, they're completely independent. So they follow out the penguins one morning. So the penguins leave to go back to the ocean about an hour or two before sunrise. And the chicks are going to go with them and learn how to swim. And that's it. They're a fully fledged penguin. And they've got to do it all themselves. So when they come home after their gap year, that's when they have to find their own homes. And even the parents, they're not monogamous like you'd expect. They're socially monogamous, so they will stay to... Ooh, goose. My absolute favourite thing.
Goosey.
Oh, one of them's a bit shy. The parents will stay together. We found that they actually have a similar divorce rate to humans, as terrible as that sounds, up to 50% each year. So they generally tend to stay together for 3 or 4 years at a time before they split up and find a new partner. And more often than not, when they split up, if it's because of a poor breeding year, a poor breeding year can happen from a lot of different things, from temperatures to poor food sources, but the penguins are going to blame their partner and split up and hope the next partner's a bit better, which is a bit wrong, but that's just how it goes in penguin world. Look at them, they're like, can I go around? Or do I want to run past quickly? Do I want to do a big circle, or do I just want to wait for the goose to leave?
Just imagine they're just standing there whistling. Nothing to see here.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Very nonchalant penguins. Oh, we got the brave penguins are like, yeah, okay, I reckon I can do this. Goose is back to them. They don't know what's... Uh-oh. Yeah, see, Goose lifts his head and they're like, oh God, what have I done? Run away. All right, and see, again, we've got the spectrum between our brave penguins and our big old chickens. Brave penguins have gone. They've left their road just a little bit to go around because they were a little bit nervous, and these guys are like, I don't need to go home. I've got nothing. No, it's fine. Oh, look at them. They've run fully into the bushes now. They've completely lost it. Oh dear. Oh, they're so funny. It's terrible how much I enjoy watching the geese torture the penguins, because it's just such an interesting interaction. It's a natural interaction as well. Penguins will have to interact with other birds sometimes, and this is just an amusing one.
Absolutely. And as you say, they're not a predator, Viv. They're just a bit annoying and a bit scary, but they're certainly not going to hurt them or eat them or anything like that. So
No, definitely
it's just
not.
one of those interactions. Now, it is getting very close to
I
that
know.
5 minutes. A couple of quick questions, if we can just squeeze them in. I do like answering the kids' questions if I can. And sorry if I've missed a few. Just keep tuning in and keep asking them. Young Lucy would like to know what's the lifespan of a penguin. And I did notice there was a question earlier from another young'un. What's the difference between like lifespan in the big wide world and lifespan kind of here? Is there a difference?
Oh, very good question. So I don't know some exact numbers, so I'm going to be a bit of an educated guess for some of this. But the oldest penguin we have ever recorded was about 26 years old. But on average, they tend to make it more to 7 or 8 or so. Dr. Andre has said a penguin is a senior at around 11, so same way as my dog was a senior when he hit 7 years old. As for here compared to other areas, I'm going to say probably... Oop, highway. But I don't know any numbers, so I don't know if there's like a very specific amount that ours survive better with, but I imagine with the lack of foxes here that we've got a higher average lifespan than say the colony at St Kilda that has got foxes and a lot more human disturbance there than we do, but I wouldn't. Do you know any numbers for that one?
No, I was going to say about the same as you. So sort of in the wild, generally in the big wide world, averaged across all the little penguins in the Southern Ocean in Australia, it's around 7 years to the best of my knowledge. But here it is, as Andre has pointed out, he calls a senior penguin around 11. And as you pointed out, because we're now fox free, because we've taken away a lot of those human threats from here, that the penguins here do tend to live a bit longer. So sort of between 11 and 14 are the numbers that I've heard.
Absolutely. And it was really cool when I first started working here a few years ago. We still had some penguins that had these beautiful metal band on their wings. Now, we stopped using those bands around 2002. So every time a penguin came in with that metal band, we knew that they were a pensioner penguin, as we called them, because we stopped using them to use the internal microchips because they were a bit better ethically for the penguins and didn't cause them any disturbances. And I saw one actually a month or so ago, and I hadn't seen one in probably a year before then. So they've all sort of hit that limit of being dying of old age. But I've seen one recently, and I'm pretty excited about that because that makes them 17, 18, 19 or something, which is really exciting. All right, I can see Rolly's like looking at the time, going, "Come on."
Well, I was just going to quickly last thing before we go on.
Oh,
it's actually more of a statement or a comment addressing the cat in the room.
Oh.
So it's been a little over a week since some of you would have seen that giant grey tabby feral cat just strolling along in front of our underground viewing window. Now Stu and the feral animal pest animal management team have been out doing some trapping. We've not been successful at catching this one as yet, which just goes to show you how elusive they are, what incredible hunters they are, and why it's so important that we keep our cats indoors, we keep them safe and secured, have them microchipped, and make sure that they don't go outside, because they are awesome hunters and they are awesome at hiding. So we'll still keep looking, but we haven't found it yet.
Yep. And we're not against cats. I've got two, well, I don't want to say gorgeous because one of them's a bit mean sometimes, but I've got two beautiful cats at home, but they live inside all the time, and they are not neglected or not enriched. They've got a ridiculous amount of toys and things to keep them occupied, and help do similar things to their natural hunting behaviours, all the fun toys that we get to play with cats with. So when you can keep your cats inside, we really strongly recommend it, or at least, very least, keeping them inside between dusk and dawn when most of our wildlife is active.
Absolutely.
All right, so Rolly, do you do a huck off with us?
I do a huck off,
yes!
absolutely. I'm not very good at it, but I do it.
That's fine. That's absolutely fine. All right, All right, well, thank you everyone for watching. We will be back tomorrow night. I don't know who's on tomorrow night, sorry, but we will be here and we will keep answering all of your penguin questions. So thank you so much for joining us, and goodbye. We'll see you later.
Bye, everyone.